Now coming to the overall control, preventive control and global controlling. Okay, so in an organization there should be overall control techniques, preventive control, a type of feed-forward control, and what do you mean by the term global controlling is discussed in this lecture. Now speaking of the control of overall performance. So for the overall achievement of objectives in an organization, okay, why is it that much important? Just as overall planning must apply to the enterprise, overall control also should be there to analyze the achievement of organizational goals. So just as we do overall planning, that is we know planning and controlling, which is called as a twins of management, must go in hand in hand. Without proper planning, we cannot have a proper controlling function. And decentralization of authority, it is going to create semi-independent unit. They must be subjected to overall control in order to avoid confusion. In every type of large organization, decentralization is mandatory. We cannot have a centralized authority in very large organization. So when we are doing decentralization, if we are not employing proper controlling, then it can be a problem. Okay, there will not be any type of discipline maintained in the organization. So that is why overall controlling is very much necessary. It permits the measurement of an integrated area. That is, in an organization there will be many type of functional departments. Okay, so as such there may be many leaders who is controlling say a particular function or particular project. There can be product managers also. So if there is no overall controlling, there will not be proper coordination between the departments. So because of all these reasons, overall controlling is very essential. Many overall controls in business are financial. Finance is the binding force in business. It accurately indicates the total expenses for resources in reaching the goals. A manager must have a way of knowing what goal achievements has cost in terms of resources. Okay, so before doing any type of work, we should be having in mind about the economy. What will be the cost incurred in producing such a unit, or what will be the revenue which can be received. So whatever control technique, initially we go for a financial control technique, or we have learned about different types of control technique, in which the first one was a budgetary type of control technique. So if budgetary control technique is possible, obviously we go for it. Then only we see about the non-budgetary control techniques. And it has to be tailored to the specific needs of enterprise and position. That is, this point we have seen in the requirements of effective controlling. It should be specific to the enterprise and position. A deviation from planned cause may lead to a manager to find the causes in poor planning, inadequate training of employees, or other non-financial factors. So because of all these reasons, overall controlling is necessary. And remember, most of the control in business are financial in nature. Budgetary form of control is most commonly employed by all organizations. The profit and the loss control, it shows the revenues and expenses for a given period. That is, what is the cost incurred and what is the profit or the income which we have collected from that particular sales. So they are a definite standard against which to measure the success. It is a summary of results of business operation. Each part or division of the enterprise should contribute towards this. The limitation, speaking, cost and time required is very high, and there are duplication of records. Obviously, in a very large organization, when we are having different types of departments, okay, there may be duplication of records. For a single project or a product carried out itself, there are duplication of records involved. Difficult to allocate many overhead costs. It may not be always possible to allocate the extra cost or extra expenditures which is incurred. Now speaking about the control through return on investment. What is a return on investment? That is a rate of return that a company or a division can earn on the capital allocated to it. We are having many stakeholders in our organization. Each of them will be expecting something in return. Okay, they may have invested in our company. So obviously we have to share our profit with them. So what is the return on investment? That is important. Okay, so you have to have a control over this return on investment. You have to properly analyze all this, and if possible state in numerical terms. Then only proper controlling can be achieved. Because this return on investment, it is going to indicate the relative success of an organization, and it recognizes the fundamental fact that capital is always a critical factor in any enterprise. So out of all the resources, okay, speaking of human resources, financial resources, all those resources, in all this, capital is important. It is a critical factor which is going to stand in the way in the process of both planning as well as controlling. Next one is management audits and accounting firms. So in between the activity of your organization, we can conduct a auditory function, accounting of audit, which is done in order to ensure that the companies are working as per directed. So it can be an independent process which is pointing in improving the efficiency of the performance of management function. It is not compulsory and it is not enforced by law. So as a manager, what is the pattern of culture which is being followed by a leadership or a particular organization? What is the culture which is existing? Based on that, we can go for such type of monitoring function. But it is not that necessary. It is up to us to decide when we have to conduct this audit function or whether it is required. So if we are doing it, it is to ensure that the company or the worker is working as per directed and there are no unethical practices which is being followed by the organization. So if we are having such a type of balanced scorecard, that is we are having, say, what is our goal or objective, what is the actual measure we have obtained. So we can compare the deviation and take the corrective action. This is a basic form of controlling. And this is a balanced scorecard for each of these factors, customer factor, innovative and learning factor. So if you are having such a form of scorecard, easily you can observe whether our designed vision and strategy, long-term objectives are called as strategy, is being achieved. So next type is bureaucratic and clan control. So bureaucratic control, it is characterized by the wide use of rules, regulation, policies, procedures and formal authority. Okay, so when we are strictly implementing the rules, that is if we are following a type of transactional leadership, okay, we are offering something to them in return. Maybe we are offering them extra wages, extra bonus, or even we are making them to work based on fear. That is, we are giving them punishments. That is, we are strictly adhering to rules, policies, etc. without giving them a proper freedom. Okay, that type of control can also exist. Another type of control is a clan control, which is based on norms, shared values, expected behavior, and other cultural types of variables. So, depending upon how we choose our leadership style or how we want our, whether we are task oriented leaders or whether we are human oriented leaders, you can choose the type of control, whether bureaucratic control is necessary or a clan control is necessary. Now about the preventive control. What do you mean by preventive control? The higher the quality of managers and their subordinates, less will be the need for direct controls. That is, if a manager is an experienced one, he will be having the initial idea of a feed-forward control. Before the process starts itself, he will be using the informations on based on his past experience and he will be feeding it to the input. Okay, so this information is very important if we have to conduct a feed-forward control or even a concurrent control. So the assumption in the principle of preventive control are qualified managers make a minimum error. This is just an assumption. It may always not be true. Sometimes a newly recruited manager may become more efficient, can be more efficient than that of a qualified manager. Managerial performance can be measured. Concept, principle and techniques are useful diagnostic standards in measuring the managerial performance. Next one is the application of management fundamentals can be evaluated. So these are certain assumptions that a qualified manager can always perform well and managerial performance can be measured. But in actual case, this is all intangible factor. We cannot directly measure and it is very difficult in practice to compare the managers who may be even holding the same position. Okay, so when we are comparing the management functions performed by different types of managers, we have to also consider that management is both a science as well as an art. So certain factors can be measured since management is a science, but since management is an art, we cannot measure certain type of factors. So in this assumption, in the principle of preventive control, we are assuming that everything could be evaluated. These are the advantages of preventive control. Okay, greater accuracy is achieved in assigning personal responsibility. That is, it becomes the personal responsibility of a manager and not his workers in achieving the preventive control. Preventive control hastens the corrective action and make it more effective. So we are going to implement the control even before actually the process starts, and it lightens the managerial burden, and the preventive control is making sure that we have correctly allocated all the resources. So in the beginning itself, if you are thinking of the controlling process, that is in the beginning process of planning, we are thinking about controlling, it actually lightens the managerial burden. And also psychological advantage, subordinate managers know what is expected of them and understand the nature of managing and feel a close relationship between the performance and the measurement. So, as such, we will be having more satisfaction and the commitment towards the work will increase. That is a psychological advantage of thinking about a preventive control for a manager. Now, coming to the term global controlling, that is, we are employing the controlling function not only inside our organization, but if we are a MNC company, that is, if a company engage in multinational business, then the challenge of controlling is of global nature. Factors like distance, culture, language, and practices create the barriers to the effective practices. Okay, so when we are going for a international business, we need to understand the culture which is followed by outside countries. For example, if we have to understand if we are trading with US, what is the culture, management practice followed by them? What are the norms or even what may be the government regulations set by them since we are going for trans-border trade. So all those external factors become very important. Okay, so here a comparison of controlling practices of Japan, American and Chinese can be done. So coming to the work nature of Japan, there managers, they are considered to be a part of the work group rather than being separated. So we are aware of some of the managerial practices of Japan and US since we have studied about the Z theory, which was a combination of the American practices and the Japanese practices. And in always Japanese practices, the collective group is given importance rather than a particular individual. So we have incorporated most of the Japanese practices into our Z theory. So here the measurement of individual performance is not that much important. So all the emphasis is given upon group performance. Also they consider the individual's family also along with them. Okay, so lot of emotional or personal importance is given to their workers. Lifelong employability is being ensured. So all those things we have seen in Z theory. And other type of controlling technique implemented by them is the quality circles. Okay, quality circles, they are defined as small group of employees of the same work area doing the similar work. It meets voluntarily and regularly to identify, analyze and resolve work related problems, and they are to meet on a regular basis. So a peer group is created, so they are going to regularly meet and discuss, and on all such you can observe that it is a group of people and no importance is given to individual action. So group achievement of goals or a teamwork is being stressed in case of Japanese culture. In United States, it's just the opposite. Individual performance is given importance, and the measuring performance, it is against the pre-established standards. They give a lot of importance to the initial planning and setting up of pre-established standards, and MBO, managing by objectives, is a process which is widely practiced in the country. We have learned about the MBO process, its advantages, disadvantages, block diagram, etc. Now, here the controlling focus on individual performance rather than the group performance. Now, coming to the China, it is a combination of the US and Japanese managerial practices. Based on the work they undertake, they decide on to whether to follow a quality circle technique or whether to follow a MBO technique. Okay, so in China, group leaders usually exercise a control, that is some type of democratic style of leadership is followed. Focus is given both on the group as well as on individual. That is why it is a combination of US and Japan technique. Factory managers, for example, they are expected to meet on a regular basis. So they also employ, we can say that they employ quality circles to some extent, but in addition, they also can incorporate MBO process. So that is a managerial practice followed by the China. So if you are comparing, here we have compared only Japan, US and China. So if you are seeing each country's traditional nature of how they are going to do their management in an organization, it is very much sure, or we will become aware that we have to be very much clear in concept, that is how to do a trans-border trade. Okay, if we are going for, if we are a MNC company. Okay, so it is very important to understand about the external environment which is existing in all the countries in which we are going to planning to do the particular type of trade. Okay, so managers with a global orientation, they will learn about the management as they have to be practiced in their own environment as well as in the external environment of the different countries. So here we have stated examples only for Japan, US, China, etc. So if you are referring for more and more country, you can see what is a basic practice which is incorporated by the country, whether they are following quality circle or whether they are following MBO or whether they are following some other technique. Okay, so this was a lecture which was based on the overall control, preventive control and global control.